Hi there, I'd like to take a few minutes and go over the oil change procedure on the Janus 250 model line. If you're comfortable working around a hot motor and high exhaust, we recommend that you run the motor for about 5 minutes to lower the viscosity of the oil, and also it kind of stirs up the contaminants and more of them come out with the oil. If you're not comfortable working around a hot exhaust and motor, it's fine to put it on the stand and work on it cold. So we'll start with a cold motor on this one. And we have a 17mm socket that we're going to use to pull the oil drain plug. And we have our oil catch here. Your oil drain plug is directly below your motor here. We'll remove the oil drain plug using a 17mm socket. Once you get it broken loose, I like to finish it off by hand. That way I hold the bolt and there's no chance of it falling into the oil reservoir. All right. At the end of your oil drain plug, it is magnetized, so we'll catch any contaminants. We'll make sure that we get rid of that if there are any contaminants on the end of the drain plug. We can set that aside. And as that's draining, we can take off the oil filter. The oil filter is a 24mm nut. Make sure your oil catch is directly underneath your oil filter, which is located right here. It's that flanged hex piece right there. And we'll take our 24mm with an extension on it. And we'll go ahead and break that loose. You want to be careful here because there are extra pieces. So we use a oil catch that has a screen on it, so it can catch anything that might fall in there. There's a few pieces to the oil filter here. Right now we're just removing the cap, the spring. There's the filter back there, which is loose, but it's kind of deep in there, so sometimes you need a little bit of a helper tool to pull that out. There we go. And that's the mesh filter there. At this point, now we have the drain plug out and the oil filter out. It's a good idea to rock your Janus bike side to side slowly, ensuring that we get all the old oil out. Once you're sure you have all the oil out, we can go ahead and clean and inspect all the pieces for the oil filter. You want to make sure that the rubber O-ring and seal is good on the cap, and that there is no damage to the wire mesh or the seal of the oil filter itself, and that there's no debris on any of the parts. You can use compressed air or a solvent like brake cleaner to go ahead and clean these. We have cleaned all the oil filter parts and the drain plug using brake parts cleaner. We've inspected them and they're good to go back on the bike. So at this point I went ahead and removed the oil catch, put a towel down just to catch any residual oil dripping. We're going to go ahead and install the filter first. We're going to install the filter now, making sure that the seal is towards the back. Make sure that's seating into place properly. And then the spring actually goes around the filter and pushes on that seal. So make sure everything goes in there and you're not forcing any parts. Make sure that's seated properly. And then we're going to go ahead and put the cap on. At this point, we're ready to reinstall the oil drain plug. I'll get started by hand. And this requires a torque wrench set to 18 foot-pounds using a 17mm wrench. Now all the oil is drained out. We're ready to put oil back in the motor. Your oil fill plug and also your oil check is over here on the right side of the motor, just next to the kickstarter. We're going to go ahead and insert a funnel. If you cleaned your filter or replaced your oil filter and you're putting new oil in there, you need to add 1,000 milliliters. If you did not remove your oil filter, you only have to use 950 milliliters. We recommend using Spectro Golden 4 motorcycle oil. This is what we put in all of our factory bikes. As you're filling it up, it's good to check your viewing window, which is located on the right side of your motor, towards the bottom here. And to do so, you have to turn your motor upright. Give it a few seconds to settle in. Looks like we got our oil exactly where we want it, in between the L mark for low and the H mark for high. Another way of checking your oil is to screw the dipstick in completely. Make sure your bike is upright. And when you pull it out, the oil level should be somewhere in the crosshatch mark, not lower and no higher. We suggest getting in the habit of always checking your oil viewing window before rides and after rides. This will tell you if your motor is leaking oil or has any consumption issues. There's one final step to the oil change, and that's wiping down the oil drain plug and the oil filter and any residual oil that's on the bottom of the motor or any other parts of the bike. And now you want to start the bike up and let it idle or run around the block for about 5 minutes and re-inspect underneath to make sure there's no oil leaks whatsoever.